Gilbert was a man who was sentenced to 18 months in prison for committing check fraud. However, he escaped from prison after 6 months and crossed the Canadian border. He tried to find work so he could survive in the new land. He applied for a job as an ice cream seller but needed an identity card to fill out the forms. He bought a beggar's identity card for $22 with the name Robert. He used this identity card to apply for the job and became known as Robert. Robert went to a church that provided rooms for tourists and met a woman named Andrea. The next day, he started selling ice cream with great enthusiasm, but unfortunately, the ice cream company went bankrupt and he lost his job. He went to a bar to cool off and ran into a notorious police officer named Snides who was spying on the bar's owner, a gangster named Tommy. After the bar, Robert asked Andrea out on a date, but she closed the door of the church because it was after 11 p.m. He read a newspaper that reported the efforts of the American government to pursue him but was worried after hearing the news. While Andrea was in the toilet, she found out she was pregnant and wanted to tell Robert the happy news. However, her husband was going out of town for a few days on business, so she had to back down. When Robert arrived in Vancouver, he was looking for work but no one accepted him. He saw a car taking money from the bank and entered the bank to observe the entire room. He disguised himself as a security guard by borrowing clothes from a shop on the pretext that he was an actor. He used this disguise to steal money from the bank. The man went to see the bank manager and asked lots of questions about the bank's safety. He checked the room where they keep all the cameras. Then, he pretended to be someone else and called some employees. He even made some security guards leave their jobs. He even took a class to learn how to make fake skin and how to use it. He took a fake nose made of silicone. Eventually, he was ready to rob the bank. He dressed up so that no one would know it was him. He went to a teller named Jessica and gave her a piece of paper that said not to scream. He also acted like he had a gun and told her to give him all the money. Jessica was scared and gave him the money. But the man didn't have a place to put the money, so he made Jessica put it in her purse. His disguise almost fell off because his fake nose was starting to come off. He quickly fixed it and then changed his clothes and put the money in a suitcase. When he got to the airport, he had a problem because he had to go through a machine that would see the money. So, he put some of the money in his underwear. But, he didn't have to go through the machine after all. His wife was waiting for him at the airport and they went to their new house. The man told his wife he was running the family business. The police were investigating a robbery and a detective named Hoffman was trying to catch the thief. They didn't have enough money to do it. The man who robbed the bank wanted to rob more banks, so he went to see the thief and offered to rob a bank for him. He disguised himself as a construction worker and robbed the bank. He did this several times and became known as the Flying Bandit. He used the money to buy expensive things and became a member of a rich person's club. He was offered a crazy opportunity to rob a jewelry store. On the other side, the detective's plan was approved. The authorities have secured a flow of finances for the mission to apprehend the notorious gangster boss, Tommy. The operation has been named Project Cafe by Detective Snides. If the operation yields positive results, all participants will receive a raise. Detective Snides and his team are constantly monitoring Tommy's activities and anyone else who associates with him. They aim to capture 2 of Tommy's closest associates, Bishop and Dave. However, while staying in a room, Gilbert was taken aback by Andrea, who noticed a pile of money on the bed. When asked about the origin of the funds, Gilbert truthfully admitted to robbing a bank. But to prove he didn't harm anyone during the robbery, he went ahead and robbed another bank, witnessed by his wife. Andrea was in awe of Gilbert's expertise in the crime but was apprehensive about his situation. When Gilbert returned home with the loot, Andrea made him promise not to get caught and to retire from his criminal activities eventually. Meanwhile, Detective Snides was observing from a distance near Tommy's bar. Gilbert soon arrived at the bar to meet Tommy, and Detective Hoffman grew suspicious of the car's license plate registered in Andrea's name. Inside the bar, Tommy and Gilbert were discussing plans to rob a jewelry store, with Bishop assigned to accompany Gilbert. When Gilbert went to the bathroom, Detective Snides followed him and confronted him. The detective noticed traces of silicone glue on Gilbert's face, which only reinforced his belief that Gilbert and the Flying Bandit were one and the same. The detectives called all costume shops selling the same disguises. That night, Detective Snides received an emergency call from the police station. They had arrested Dave, Tommy's right-hand man, for drunk driving. Dave revealed that Gilbert was in fact Robert, the flying bandit. Dave also disclosed that Gilbert was planning another major robbery. Excited by this new information, Detective Snides rushed to the robbery location and started his investigation by questioning the shopkeeper who provided Gilbert's clothes and informing the local police of the impending robbery. He asked for help in deploying police officers to keep a watch over all banks in the city. At the same time, Gilbert and Bishop embarked on a mission while disguised as camera technicians. Unbeknownst to them, a group of police officers were trailing their movements outside the building. Gilbert requested the shopkeeper to put all the jewelry in a bag while Bishop kept watch by the door. Suddenly, Bishop spotted Snides heading towards the shop and they quickly evaded the police pursuit. However, Bishop's knife was left behind as evidence. The police continued their pursuit, but the two were aided by their similar-looking uniforms worn by other individuals, causing confusion for the police. Snides, being cunning, set off the fire alarm to create chaos among the mall visitors, and ordered his men to chase after Gilbert and Bishop. Gilbert ran towards the rear exit while Snides lost sight of them. Once it was safe, Gilbert contacted Andrea and instructed her to pack up as they needed to leave. They later went to the hospital where Andrea gave birth to their child. Meanwhile, Gilbert's house was raided by the police but found to be unoccupied as he had taken refuge elsewhere. With the help of Tommy, Gilbert found a new home where he lived with his family, day by day raising his child and preparing for the arrival of their second child. However, Gilbert's dwindling savings led him to plan one last robbery, which Andrea disapproved of. The next day, Gilbert left Andrea and his child, writing a letter indicating his location. When Andrea woke up, she found that her husband was gone and received a call from Snides inquiring about his whereabouts. She informed Snides that Gilbert was not at home. Subsequently, they tried reaching out to every airport, but their efforts were in vain. Suddenly, Snides stumbled upon an advertisement in a newspaper regarding a domestic airline that had slipped through his radar. His team raced to the location of the airline's flight path. At another location, Gilbert was seen putting together his scheme in a hotel room. However, he received a call from Andrea and fibbed once more about his plan. He simply requested her to pick him up at the airport at 5 p.m. After stuffing his suitcase with cash, he left the bank. He then changed his outfit and made a fake emergency call about a robbery at the bank. Surprisingly, several individuals who robbed the bank were dressed similarly to Gilbert, leading to a wrongful arrest by the police. He capitalized on this situation to escape. While searching for a taxi, he observed a police officer questioning an innocent victim of the false arrest. It turned out that all the taxis had been redirected to another street. Next, Gilbert spotted a car for sale and impulsively bought it and fled. At the same time, Snides arrived at the crime scene and displayed a photo of Gilbert to everyone. One of the police officers claimed to have seen the man in the photo escaping in a car. Finally, Gilbert reached the airport and passed through the metal detector. However, the airport received information about Gilbert being on the wanted list and informed Snides. Agreeing to the suggestion, Snides and Hoffman quickly flew by helicopter. Upon Gilbert's arrival at the airport, Andrea picked him up, but at the same moment, police cars surrounded him. Gilbert was arrested in front of his wife and child. At the police station, Snides questioned Gilbert. Andrea was also summoned to speak to Gilbert and was disappointed that he never revealed his real name to her. Tommy also visited him and informed the police of Gilbert's whereabouts. He was found guilty of armed robbery and sentenced to 20 years in prison. And the movie ends.